For your insights. Of course, any further developments on this situation we will continue to bring you. But we move on now, and China has said it firmly opposes any visit to the United States by a Taiwanese leader after reports denied by Taipei that the island's President Lai Ching-Te had recently planned a trip but was rejected by Washington. Taiwanese President Lai Ching-Te has cancelled a trip to 3 allies in Central and South America after a planned stopover in the United States was reportedly nixed by his US counterpart Donald Trump. Let's take a look at what Guo Jiakun, China's foreign ministry spokesperson, has had to say.
中方注意到有关报道，我要强调的是，中方坚决反对任何形式的美台官方往来，坚决反对台湾地区领导人以任何名义、任何理由窜美。 这一立场是一贯、明确、坚定的，希望美方恪守一个中国原则和中美3个联合公报，慎之又慎处理台湾问题，共同推动中美关系稳定、健康、可持续发展。
Well, according to reports, Lai was preparing to visit Paraguay, Guatemala and Belize in early August, with stopovers planned in New York and potentially Dallas on the first and last legs of the trip. Lai's office had never formally announced his trip to Latin America. However, it said the president had cancelled all overseas travel to focus on tariff negotiations with the US and a clean-up operation following a typhoon in southern Taiwan. The president of Taiwan cannot officially visit the US, which does not recognise its government, but Taiwanese leaders have made use of transit stops in the US over the years to liaise with top administration officials outside of Washington, D.C. Let's see what Taiwan's foreign ministry has said.
实际上和过去一样，总统出访的行程在定案之后，都会由总统府适时的对外公布及说明。而考量到近日我国南部风灾灾后的复原工作，以及目前对美国等对等关税谈判的进行等等，也还有相关的国际情势，总统近期 暂无海外访问的安排，更没有所谓延期、取消或者美方不同意过境的情形。
Well, joining us to discuss these developments, Andrew KP Leung, a China strategist, joining us live from London. Andrew, as always, a pleasure to have you on the programme. There's quite a lot to unpack here, a little bit of confusion in that information I gave earlier. So just to clarify, of course, reports suggesting that Lai Ching-Te, president of Taiwan, was set to have stopover visits in the US. Reports then suggesting that those had been cancelled, potentially because of ongoing US-China trade talks and a request from the US, or because of other issues, including tariffs of Taiwan's and negotiations needing to take place there. Ultimately, this is bringing back a wider conversation about Taiwanese leadership meeting with other nations in the midst of course, tensions over reunification that China are continuing to talk about. How do you view this situation?
Leader of Taiwan is a known separatist for a long, long time. And even his political agenda is full of separatist sentiments. And that's why Beijing is strongly opposes any of his actions that could be seen to push the envelope towards Taiwan's concept of a more independent Taiwan as a separate sovereign entity. And of course, Taiwan is not recognized by the United Nations as a country, and China has been since the visit of President Nixon to China, normalizing the relationship, using the relationship with Beijing as a counterweight against the then Cold War USSR. But after that, Taiwan, of course, has been de-recognized by the United States, replaced by China. But the enactment of the Taiwan Relations Act also empowers the United States to arm Taiwan against any unilateral action by Beijing recovering Taiwan. Now, of course, the separation of Taiwan from China, because Taiwan, if you look at the history, had been part of China dating back to the Ming Dynasty. General Zhang He even stationed troops there. So Taiwan has been part of China, has a very strong historical foundation, and is regarded as part of the Chinese nation. But President Xi has made quite plain that the unification of Taiwan cannot be allowed to carry on like this indefinitely. And the deadline is set for 2049, which is the 100th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China. But then the preference is for peaceful unification. But then the Taiwan president, the Taiwan leader, is using every opportunity to push the envelope. For example, the last example was a very provocative visit to Taiwan of Nancy Pelosi, which led to a circumvent military exercise by Beijing. Now, as far as this current episode is concerned, obviously, according to reliable reports in the New York Times, Reuters, and that seems that the Taiwan authorities is walking back from its earlier intention to make a stopover visit in New York. But because of the coming possible meeting between President Trump and President Xi, so Washington obviously doesn't want any spanner in the works. And hence, that's what's happening, I think.
Yes, absolutely, Andrew. Please do stay with us as we are going to move on.